Okay, this part of my head is too low. So, people, okay. All right, listen. MK Ultra, the brain experiments that a lot of people like to mention, what the CIA did. Yeah, yes, the CIA has conducted brain experiments, but it was more so. This was the creation of drugs too, like LSD and all that stuff. When they started creating stuff like that and putting it in the communities and all that, but they only put it in the communities because they was trying to single out basically KGB agents and all that going against the Soviet Union. Like a lot of people don't know how much the Cold War like has made an impact on a lot of the politics today. To be honest, that's when both U.S., Russia, and maybe China. I'm not sure. China a little bit after. Like they kind of excelled a little bit after, but basically countries like Russia and the United States started inserting agents everywhere in other countries, smaller countries to per se, and this is what we've been seeing, like big nations causing international conflicts in smaller nations to weaken their power dynamics so that way they can install their influence and add their own influence and basically preserve their economic control over that area or influence over that or political control over that area. Either or both. Oftentimes it's both because most times it's always economical and political. Oh, and sometimes they just go hand in hand. And so that's what it was really about. And plus, the U.S. did have like an imperialistic agenda that it was operating on. People like Mr. Walt Disney, he was a big believer in that agenda as well. It was called diplomatic imperialism, which is basically you establish an empire not through physical force but through political policies, installation of influence, and installation of your markets or whatever. This is what some areas of Africa was like some countries in Africa were dealing with U.S. Corporations going over there and taking over causing massive changes, basically disrupting the water to certain African countries and all that, just to preserve the company. But they were operating under diplomatic, imperialistic, agendas and all that. So this was definitely a big thing that, and now as Russia was doing, it's just really just installing influence with the KGB and all that. So it's just like bigger countries interfering with smaller countries' politics because they're smaller and not really big enough to take on a bigger country. They're smaller and more easier to control. And making money a big thing around around the world is the way to go about it. That's probably why we got this is why people who talk about like Islamic extremists and all that in other countries, well, a lot of them were created because of the operations we were conducting over there. And also they kind of didn't like the fact that we were over there messing around with their politics. So this is why they kind of wanted to reunite like the Muslim countries together or to go, to like prevent this from happening, prevent like basically infidels from coming into their countries, messing with their religion and politics and all that stuff. Because they work with sides, but come on, they're Muslim. They didn't want to work with no atheist communists as well as some Christian U.S. citizens, U.S. soldiers. You know what I'm saying? So Christians. So